The Galactic Coalition had always prided itself on efficiency. They spanned thousands of star systems, each world meticulously catalogued and controlled. They had conquered planets with ease, subjugated civilizations in weeks, and reduced entire species to obedience. Earth, a small blue planet in a quiet corner of the Milky Way, was considered insignificant, barely worth a second glance. When reports came in about Earth's defenses, the Coalition officers had laughed openly. "Primitive humans," one commander said, clicking his mandibles together. "They have no psychic shields, no engineered soldiers, no fleet to speak of. This will be quick." Their satellites had detected unusual movements in nearby space, but the data was incomplete, fragmented. Still, governments around the world worked feverishly. They had intelligence on alien fleet composition, their weapon capabilities, and even some of their strategies, but it was scant. Yet even with so much unknown, humanity had one advantage: their soldiers. Trained, adaptable, and unafraid, human soldiers would soon prove that courage alone could rewrite the expectations of an entire galaxy. When the first signals of alien fleets entered Earth's orbit, the Coalition expected surrender, or at most, a short-lived resistance. Ships descended with precision, beams slicing through the atmosphere. Cities went dark in terror. Automated defense systems were quickly disabled. Satellites exploded one by one. Yet, amid the destruction, something unexpected happened. Small, organized human units emerged from bunkers, underground tunnels, and hidden bases. They were not drones, they were not clones, and they were not machines. They were human. Major Alina Torres, a commander of the Pacific Defense Brigade, stood on the roof of a partially ruined command center. Her uniform was scorched from earlier skirmishes, her hands smeared with grime. Around her, soldiers moved like a swarm of determined ants, checking weapons, coordinating positions, and improvising where technology had failed. "Remember," she said, voice firm but calm, "the aliens are strong, but they are predictable. We are human. Adapt, fight, survive." Her words carried weight. Each soldier understood that their survival depended not just on weapons, but on strategy, quick thinking, and trust in one another. The first encounters were devastating for humans, but they were worse for the aliens. Coalition scouts had assumed humans would scatter or surrender under overwhelming firepower. Instead, humans met them with improvisation. A single squad would vanish into ruined buildings and strike from unexpected angles. Civilians became part of the battlefield, not as weapons, but as shields for creativity, warning soldiers of alien movements, creating diversions, even guiding troops through collapsed streets. Aliens struggled to understand. Their systems were designed to predict, to calculate, to overwhelm, but humans did not behave according to probability. In the skies above New York, Lieutenant Raj Patel piloted a commandeered fighter. His ship was old, barely functional, and armed with missiles scavenged from decommissioned programs. He fired anyway. One alien cruiser, expecting a harmless target, was hit squarely in its energy port, sending sparks across its hull. "Did you see that?" Patel shouted into his headset. His fellow pilots laughed, adrenaline masking exhaustion. "Humans are crazy," one said. "I think they just improvise death." On the ground, soldiers like Torres coordinated ambushes with sniper teams, engineers, and civilians working together seamlessly. Every day was chaotic, but every day brought small victories. Across the Atlantic, in the deserts of Africa, another human unit demonstrated the same unquantifiable advantage. Sergeant Kofi Ademi led a platoon of 20 through dunes, using sandstorms to mask movements. Aliens, accustomed to clean lines of sight and automated targeting, were thrown off completely. Humans fired from unexpected angles, vanished into cover, and reappeared where they were least expected. Each alien unit that fell was analyzed, and humans adapted faster than the Coalition had ever experienced. Ademi smiled, sweat dripping down his brow, as his platoon secured another supply cache. "They may have better weapons," he said, "but they cannot predict stubbornness. They are weak, unarmored, and yet they inflict damage we cannot contain." Analysts argued over data, each hypothesis failing to account for one crucial factor. Humans were unpredictable, emotional, and fearless in ways that no machine or calculation could anticipate. Humans did not rely solely on firepower. Creativity, determination, and empathy became tools of war. In a ruined European city, children guided soldiers to hidden alien machinery. Engineers rigged everyday objects into traps. Farmers, once farmers and nothing more, became demolition experts overnight, blowing bridges to redirect enemy forces. The coalition began recording these behaviors, initially as curiosities, but soon as patterns they could not counter. The turning point came at a small town in Eastern Europe. A single human battalion, surrounded on three sides by alien forces, refused to surrender. Using rubble, underground passages, and makeshift communication signals, they orchestrated a coordinated counterattack. Aliens were caught off guard repeatedly. Each wave of reinforcements met new tactics. Casualties mounted, and panic began to ripple through alien ranks. Humans, though outnumbered and outgunned, remained organized by purpose, not protocol. Major Tors led a flanking maneuver that stunned observers on both sides. With just 50 soldiers and improvised vehicles, they incapacitated a unit of alien walkers far superior in firepower. Each shot fired was calculated, each movement anticipated, but not in the sense of strategy manuals. It was intuition, experience, and the willingness to risk everything for the greater mission. When the dust settled, survivors of the battalion cheered. "We are humans," Tors said simply, looking at her exhausted team. "And we survive when others would not. It is impossible to predict them." And that unpredictability became humanity's greatest weapon. By now, civilian populations were mobilized not as conscripts but as contributors to survival. Humanity's strength was not in numbers, though numbers helped, nor in technology, though they had some. It was in the ability to unite, adapt, and endure. Across continents, humans who had never fired a weapon before became essential to defense operations. Every human had a role, every individual mattered, and that realization gave them an almost unquantifiable advantage. Alien commanders began to fear what they had dismissed. Fleet movement orders slowed, landing operations stalled, and the once confident coalition began to doubt. They had faced countless species across the galaxy, yet none had defied probability like humans. In the orbital command of the Pacific Fleet, Vork slammed his clawed hand against a console. "They cannot be predicted. They cannot be contained. Every engagement costs more than it should. Recall the landing forces immediately. Reassess." This is unprecedented. In bunkers, command centers, and makeshift headquarters, they prepared for what came next. As night fell across continents, the stars above twinkled indifferently. Alien cruisers hovered silently, scanning for human positions. But the humans on the ground slept little, trained and alert, ready to respond to any threat. They had no illusions they were facing a superior force. Yet the alien assumption that Earth's soldiers would crumble had been shattered. The first battles had been won not with technology, but with something the coalition could neither understand nor replicate: human willpower. The story of Earth's first engagement with the Galactic coalition had begun. Across space, officers recalculated probabilities, algorithms failing to account for what was happening on the blue planet below. On Earth, soldiers patched wounds, repaired weapons, and shared rations with civilians. For every human lost, there were two inspired to continue. For every alien advantage, humans found a way to turn it against them. The coalition's mockery had backfired spectacularly. Major Alina Tors looked out over a city in ruins, smoke curling into the sky, but the streets alive with movement and purpose. She thought about what had happened that day, the first surprise encounters, the ambushes, the victories. It was only the beginning. Humans had shown that they could face fear and destruction and respond with courage, wit, and adaptability. For the first time in coalition history, a species had made them question whether conquest was truly possible. And somewhere deep in the alien fleet, Admiral Vork realized that Earth was not a simple planet. It was a place where every human was a soldier, every citizen a part of the defense, and every act of resistance an unpredictable threat. They had laughed at humans. They had assumed weakness. Now fear had crept into their calculations. The humans on Earth did not know it yet, but they had begun to write their legend. One battle at a time, one street at a time, they were proving that the smallest, seemingly weakest species could hold a galaxy in awe. The coalition's arrogance was crumbling, and in its place rose the first glimmers of respect, a respect that would grow as the humans of Earth refused to surrender, refused to break, and refused to be underestimated. This was the beginning of humanity's story among the stars, and no one, not alien or human, would forget it. The morning after the first major battles, the humans on Earth did not celebrate. Across the continents, cities were scarred, forests burned, and oceans churned with debris from the alien landings. Yet amid the chaos, a new kind of energy pulsed through every human soldier and civilian: determination. The coalition had thought Earth's defenses were weak, that humans would scatter when faced with real danger. Instead, the humans had adapted, survived, and even fought back. Major Alina Torres convened with her field commanders in a reinforced command bunker beneath the ruins of Tokyo. The room was dim, illuminated only by flickering holoscreens displaying live maps, satellite feeds, and intercepted alien communications. "We've seen their strength," she said, voice calm but firm. "And we've seen their weakness. Their fleets are powerful but predictable. Their land units are strong, but they cannot adapt as we do. We are human. That is our advantage. And we will use it. And they panic when things go wrong for them. We hit them here," he whispered to his platoon, "and we vanish before they can call reinforcements. Simple, quick, human." One human squad might use an abandoned subway tunnel to flank a giant walker. Another would rig civilian vehicles with makeshift explosives to destroy a landing pod. Their weaponry might be older, slower, or less powerful, but humans made it work through creativity, speed, and audacity. In Europe, a ruined French city became a testing ground for human ingenuity. Civilians had joined with soldiers, creating barricades, traps, and emergency communication networks. Engineers turned discarded machinery into weaponized drones. Even children contributed, sending messages, warning soldiers of alien patrols, and guiding reinforcements through rubble. The aliens struggled to understand. Their calculations predicted surrender, not resistance, efficiency, not creativity. Major Torres watched from her command post as reports came in from multiple theaters. In New York, Lieutenant Patel had captured an alien landing craft, learning its internal layout and weapon functions. In Cairo, local militias had guided soldiers to sabotage alien energy cores, causing explosions that echoed across the desert. And in Eastern Europe, Adami's platoon had orchestrated a diversion so perfect that alien units destroyed each other by mistake. The humans were not merely surviving, they were dictating the terms of engagement. The coalition's leaders were growing desperate. In a darkened room aboard the flagship Eternal Dominion, Admiral Vork scrolled through battle reports. His claws tapped nervously on the console. "How can this be?" he demanded. "They have no psionic shields, no advanced armor, no hypervelocity weaponry, and yet they dominate our scouts and delay our fleets." "It is their unpredictability, Admiral. Humans do not follow patterns. They fight with something our calculations cannot model. It is willpower, determination. They risk themselves in ways that are illogical. They adapt faster than we can respond. Recall the landing forces. They cannot. Too much territory, too many variables. This, human adaptability, it is unprecedented." Engineers and scientists worked tirelessly, studying alien technology and repurposing it. Soldiers trained not just with human weapons, but also with alien equipment, learning how to use their enemies' strengths against them. Human ingenuity became a force multiplier that the coalition had not anticipated. In South America, a squad of human soldiers moved through the Amazon jungle. Sergeant Maria Alvarez guided them silently, her eyes scanning for movement. "They think the jungle is a weakness for us," she whispered. "It is their weakness. They cannot navigate it easily, but we can. Every river, every vine, every hidden trail is ours to use." Using natural cover and improvised camouflage, they moved like shadows, striking with precision. The aliens, expecting easy reconnaissance, found themselves trapped, disoriented, and overpowered. Human soldiers celebrated quietly, not for glory, but for survival and for the knowledge that their tactics were effective. The psychological impact on the coalition was significant. Across fleets and outposts, reports of human resistance spread like wildfire. Alien commanders who had once laughed at Earth now whispered in fear and disbelief. "They fight without fear," said one. "They coordinate without orders. They improvise when logic says they should surrender." Every engagement carried risk. Every misstep could result in death. Yet the knowledge that they could surprise, outsmart, and endure became a source of strength. Civilians continued to support soldiers, providing shelter, supplies, and intelligence. Entire nations became mobilized, not through coercion, but through shared purpose and pride in their species. In North America, a human task force launched a daring operation to sabotage a primary alien communications hub. Led by Lieutenant Patel, the squad infiltrated the heavily guarded facility, using darkness, terrain, and distraction tactics to slip past alien sentries. Explosives were planted in precise locations, and within moments, the hub erupted in a controlled detonation. The result was instantaneous. Alien forces in the region were cut off from command and coordination, causing confusion and retreat. Back on the Coalition flagship, Admiral Vork's claws clenched around the console. How can they be everywhere at once? How do they coordinate without centralized control? He demanded, voice rising. Thax replied cautiously, they do not coordinate in the way we understand. Each unit acts with purpose but with autonomy. They are self-organizing, adaptive, and resilient. They are human. Humans were more than soldiers. They were a species capable of independent thought, rapid adaptation, and unwavering resolve. Every victory humans achieved seemed minor in isolation, yet collectively, they represented a growing force that the Coalition could not predict or suppress. Major Tors gathered her commanders once more. They are trying to scare us, she said. They believe that by showing strength and destruction, we will give up. But we are human. We survive when others cannot. We adapt. We fight. And most importantly, we do not surrender. They did not need perfect weapons, flawless tactics, or overwhelming numbers. They needed determination, adaptability, and the will to protect their planet, their families, and each other. That will was stronger than any alien fleet, stronger than any calculated probability, stronger than fear itself. As the sun set on a battered Earth, the humans prepared for the next wave. They patched wounds, shared rations, and reinforced positions. Communications buzzed with plans for ambushes, counterattacks, and innovations in strategy. Soldiers trained in alien technology, civilians gathered intelligence, and engineers repaired what little remained of their cities. Humanity's strength was not in their equipment alone. It was in their ability to unite, improvise, and endure under pressure. The Coalition began to fear what they could not understand. Reports of human victories, improvisation, and survival spread rapidly through their ranks. Commanders, once confident and mocking, now hesitated. Calculations failed to predict human behavior. Plans that had worked against countless species before now faltered. The galaxy's most efficient war machine was struggling to adapt to one simple fact: humans would not give up. On Earth, soldiers and civilians alike knew the stakes. They were battered, exhausted, and constantly tested, yet they remained united. Fear existed, but it was managed, channeled into action rather than panic. Humans had learned that the Coalition's greatest mistake was underestimating them. Every ambush, every trap, every improvised countermeasure reinforced a growing lesson. Humans were dangerous not because of their technology, but because of their determination, ingenuity, and unity. Major Tors walked through a makeshift encampment near the ruins of Berlin. She observed soldiers sharing supplies with civilians, medics treating the wounded, and scouts reporting enemy movements in real time. "We are human," she said quietly, more to herself than anyone else. "And that is enough." Her words carried weight because every human present understood the truth. Their greatest weapon was not lasers, missiles, or armor. It was their will to fight, adapt, and survive. Across the globe, similar scenes unfolded. Soldiers and civilians collaborated seamlessly, improvising strategies and creating solutions that the Coalition could not anticipate. In the skies, fighter pilots used old, repurposed craft to harass alien supply lines. On the ground, infantry squads used traps, misdirection, and guerrilla tactics to strike at superior forces. Each success, small or large, contributed to a growing reputation that would soon echo across the stars. Humans were not to be underestimated. As night deepened, Earth's defenders remained vigilant. The Coalition's forces were regrouping, preparing for the next assault, but humans had already adapted to the uncertainty. Every shadow could hide an ambush, every ruined building could become a defensive stronghold, every civilian could provide crucial support. Humans were unpredictable, resilient, and endlessly creative. The Coalition had laughed at Earth's army once. Now they were beginning to realize their error. Humans were not merely soldiers, they were a species that could endure, adapt, and innovate under pressure. Their determination was unquantifiable, their unity unbreakable, and their courage unparalleled. The first battles had shown the world that humans were more than a planet to conquer. They were a force to be reckoned with. As the first stars of night twinkled above the war-torn planet, Major Tors looked toward the horizon, thinking of the battles to come. She knew the humans had only begun to reveal their potential. Every engagement, every ambush, every improvisation was a step toward proving something that the Coalition would soon have to accept. Humans were not weak. Humans were dangerous. Humans were unstoppable. The alien fleets had begun to hesitate. Their calculations, once precise and confident, now faltered as reports from Earth poured in. Every attempt to advance was met with resistance that was neither predictable nor rational. Major Alina Tors observed these reports from her command post beneath the ruins of Moscow. The world above was scarred, but it was alive with human activity. Soldiers moved with purpose, civilians assisted without hesitation, and the planet itself seemed to resist occupation through sheer will. Tors leaned over the tactical map, tracing the movements of a squad led by Lieutenant Patel in the remains of Paris. The squad had been tasked with intercepting an alien patrol carrying new weaponry. Their mission was dangerous. The aliens were fast, heavily armed, and coordinated. Yet the humans had turned the city into a maze. Every alley, every ruined building, and every collapsed street was a potential trap. Patel's squad moved with careful precision, exploiting every weakness in the alien formation. "Remember," Tors said to her officers, "we cannot rely on firepower alone. Their ships are too strong, their walkers too durable. We rely on strategy, adaptation, and timing. Humans are unpredictable. That is our greatest weapon." The aliens had begun sending reconnaissance squads to locate hidden human positions. Adami's team, however, moved like shadows, blending into the thick foliage. They set traps along the narrow paths, using fallen branches, camouflaged pits, and noise-making devices to create confusion. When the alien scouts entered, they were met with unexpected resistance. Explosions erupted from hidden positions, and ambushes from above and below left the enemy disoriented. "Every movement they make," Adami said, whispering to his team, "we predict, not with machines but with observation. We adapt, we survive, and we fight back." His words carried the weight of experience. Every human soldier knew that survival depended on more than weapons. It depended on intelligence, quick thinking, and courage. In Tokyo, Major Tors oversaw another operation, this one involving the coordination of multiple human units. Civilians had been trained to spot alien movement patterns, relay information, and even assist in minor sabotage operations. Engineers had rigged the city's damaged infrastructure to act as traps, turning streets into death zones for alien walkers. Every building became a fortress, every alley a potential battleground. Humans were using the planet itself as a weapon. Lieutenant Patel's squad in Paris had encountered their first major alien walker that could fire through walls. Their initial attacks were met with heavy resistance, forcing them to retreat into underground tunnels. There, they discovered the true strength of human ingenuity. Using old subway systems, they created choke points, laid traps, and rerouted energy from broken alien devices to disable the walker. Within hours, the machine was immobilized, and the humans had captured valuable intelligence. Back on the Coalition flagship, Admiral Vork's frustration was growing. "How is this possible?" he demanded. "They are using terrain, improvisation, and emotion to fight us. They are weaker, slower, and yet they continue to resist. Every action we take is countered. Every plan fails." Humans fight because they will not surrender. They adapt because they are unpredictable. They improvise because their minds are not bound by algorithms. They are exceptional. "We must overwhelm them." Civilians played a crucial role, maintaining supply lines, providing medical aid, and guiding soldiers through unfamiliar terrain. Every human, regardless of role, contributed to the defense. Sergeant Maria Alvarez led a squad in the Brazilian Amazon to intercept a large alien supply convoy. The jungle was dense, the air humid, and the path treacherous. Yet Alvarez's squad moved with precision, using natural cover and improvised weapons. When the alien convoy arrived, the humans unleashed a carefully planned ambush. Explosives hidden under foliage detonated, disabling transport units. Soldiers fired from concealed positions, picking off alien operators with pinpoint accuracy. Within hours, the convoy was destroyed, and the squad had captured advanced weaponry to study. In Cairo, human engineers had discovered a way to interfere with alien communications using modified terrestrial devices. The interference caused delays, confusion, and miscoordination among alien units. Soldiers exploited these moments of weakness, striking swiftly and disappearing before reinforcements could arrive. The humans were learning to fight not just with courage, but with strategy, using knowledge and intelligence as weapons. Meanwhile, in Europe, Lieutenant Patel's squad pushed further into occupied territory. They discovered alien supply depots, communication hubs, and command centers. Every discovery was an opportunity. Soldiers set traps, diverted enemy patrols, and relayed critical information to other units. Each success was small but cumulative, gradually shifting the momentum of the battle. The aliens were no longer confident. They began to fear the unpredictability, adaptability, and sheer audacity of human soldiers. Major Tors reflected on the significance of these victories. "It is not just our weapons that make us strong," she said to her officers. "It is our will, our determination, our ability to adapt." The aliens can calculate, predict, and strategize, but they cannot anticipate human creativity, courage, and unity. That is why we survive. That is why we fight. That is why we will win. Civilians provided intelligence, shelter, and resources. Engineers and scientists repurposed alien technology to improve human capabilities. Every engagement, every ambush, every counterattack reinforced a simple truth: humans were unpredictable, adaptive, and resilient. The psychological impact on the coalition was profound. Commanders who had once dismissed Earth now hesitated to send reinforcements without thorough analysis. Calculations failed, algorithms faltered. Every plan was disrupted by human ingenuity. Across fleets and outposts, whispers of fear spread. "They fight with courage," one officer said. "They adapt with intelligence. They survive when logic says they should not." The humans were not just reacting. They were anticipating, improvising, and pushing the limits of their capabilities. In the ruins of New York, Lieutenant Patel led a combined operation with engineers and civilians. They had discovered a partially damaged alien ship. Using a combination of human ingenuity and captured technology, they rigged the ship to act as a decoy, drawing alien forces into an ambush. When the aliens arrived, expecting an easy capture, they were met with traps, explosives, and coordinated fire. The operation was a success, and the intelligence gained would be invaluable for future engagements. Sergeant Adami's squad in South America faced similar challenges. Alien reinforcements were attempting to cut off supply lines. Using a combination of jungle knowledge, improvised weaponry, and coordinated attacks, the squad disrupted the enemy advance. Every soldier played a role, every action had purpose, and every victory, no matter how small, contributed to a growing pattern. Humans were not to be underestimated. The aliens began to recognize the fundamental difference between humans and other species. Humans were not bound by rigid protocols, predictable strategies, or fear of death. They improvised, adapted, and acted with purpose. Their willpower, creativity, and determination made them a threat that technology alone could not suppress. Every encounter reinforced the growing reputation of human soldiers across the galaxy. Back on the Coalition flagship, Admiral Vork scrolled through casualty reports and battle analyses. His mandibles clicked with frustration. "They are everywhere," he muttered. "Every attack, every ambush, every operation, and they survive. They adapt, they fight, they are not weak, they are dangerous. They are exceptional." Soldiers were ready for ambushes, counterattacks, and reconnaissance missions. Engineers had improved weapons, vehicles, and communications. Every human, every unit, every civilian contributed to the defense of their planet. The coalition may have been powerful, but they could not predict, calculate, or control the will of humans. As night fell, soldiers across Earth remained alert. Fires from previous battles still burned, smoke curling into the sky, yet the humans persisted. Every ambush, every defensive position, and every victory reinforced a growing confidence. They had survived overwhelming odds, adapted to alien tactics, and learned from every encounter. They were not just fighting for survival, they were proving their species, strength, resilience, and ingenuity. Major Tors walked among her soldiers, observing their readiness, discipline, and determination. "We are human," she said quietly, "and that is our greatest strength. They can calculate, predict, and overwhelm, but we can adapt, improvise, and endure. That is why we fight. That is why we survive. That is why we will win." Civilians assisted soldiers, engineers improved defenses, and soldiers trained relentlessly. The humans had learned that their greatest weapon was not technology alone, but the combination of courage, adaptability, and unity. They were unpredictable, resilient, and determined. The coalition had laughed at Earth once. Now they were beginning to understand the truth. Humans were not weak, predictable, or disposable. They were a force that could not be contained, a species that could adapt and survive under pressure, and a threat that no algorithm could fully predict. As the stars shone above the battle-scarred planet, human soldiers and civilians alike prepared for the challenges ahead. The coalition's forces may have been vast and powerful, but humans had proven that determination, ingenuity, and unity could overcome even the most overwhelming odds. Every victory, every ambush, and every act of resistance strengthened their resolve. Major Tors looked toward the horizon, thinking of the battles yet to come. The humans had only begun to demonstrate their potential. Each engagement, each improvisation, and each act of courage was a step toward a growing reputation across the galaxy. Humans were not just survivors. They were warriors, innovators, and a species that could not be underestimated. The alien fleets had begun to understand something crucial. The humans were dangerous not because of weapons, but because of their willpower. They could not be predicted, they could not be contained, and they would not give up. Every encounter reinforced the growing fear across the coalition. Humans were exceptional, and Earth would not fall easily. The humans were no longer just surviving, they were preparing to strike back. Across Earth, the scars of battle still burned. Cities were in ruins, and smoke lingered over forests and deserts. Yet amid the devastation, a sense of purpose had grown. Major Elena Tors stood on a ruined bridge in Berlin, surveying the troops assembling below. Soldiers moved with precision, civilians carried supplies, and engineers adjusted improvised weapons. Humanity had learned from every encounter with the coalition, and now they were ready to turn the fight around. "The enemy believes we are weak," Tors said, her voice carrying over the rumble of engines and distant explosions. "They think we will crumble under superior force, but we have something they cannot calculate: human ingenuity, courage, and unity. Today we take the fight to them." Civilians who had once fled or hidden now guided the soldiers through narrow alleys, collapsed tunnels, and hidden pathways. Every street had been mapped, every building scouted, and every ambush planned. In the deserts of Africa, Sergeant Kofi Ademi prepared his platoon for a similar mission. Alien transport vehicles were moving ammunition and energy cores across the dunes, vulnerable to attack in the wide, open spaces. Ademi's team set traps in advance: sand pits hidden beneath the dunes, explosive charges disguised among rocks, and remote-triggered devices along likely paths. The humans knew they were outnumbered and outgunned, but they had learned to use the environment as a weapon, turning every disadvantage into an advantage. The first coordinated strike began in Europe. Lieutenant Patel's squad moved like shadows through Paris, disabling alien sentries and planting explosives in critical locations. The city itself became a trap, with ruined buildings, narrow streets, and collapsed bridges guiding the aliens into ambushes. When the alien units arrived, expecting easy victory, they were met with precise, coordinated attacks from multiple directions. Explosions tore through alien transport units, while human soldiers fired from hidden positions. Within hours, the hub was disabled and valuable technology was captured. Major Tors monitored the operation from her command post. Her eyes moved rapidly over the tactical map as reports came in. "They think they can reinforce," she said, "but we are ready. Every route is blocked, every supply line threatened, and every unit prepared for ambush." The humans are not just reacting, they are dictating the battlefield. Explosives hidden under vines and fallen trees were triggered at precisely the right moment, disabling vehicles and scattering enemy forces. Soldiers fired from concealed positions, picking off operators who tried to escape. By the end of the day, the convoy was destroyed, and the humans had gained control of critical supplies. The coalition's response was chaotic. Their fleets had assumed humans would crumble under pressure, but now the humans were attacking with precision and confidence. Reports of ambushes, destroyed supply lines, and captured technology spread rapidly through the alien ranks. Commanders who had once laughed at Earth now panicked, unsure how to counter a species that could adapt, improvise, and strike with such effectiveness. Admiral Vork paced the command deck of the flagship Eternal Dominion. His claws clicked against the console as he reviewed reports. "They are everywhere at once," he muttered. "Every attack, every ambush, every strike, and they survive. They adapt, they fight, they are not weak, they are dangerous. They fight because they will not surrender. They strike because they can, they adapt because they must, they are exceptional." Engineers and scientists worked tirelessly to adapt captured alien technology for human use. Fighters were upgraded, vehicles retrofitted with alien energy sources, and communication systems enhanced. Civilians continued to support soldiers, providing intelligence, medical aid, and logistical help. Every human contributed, whether in the field or behind the scenes, and every action strengthened the resistance. In New York, Lieutenant Patel led a joint operation to capture a partially damaged alien command ship. Using improvised explosives and precise timing, the squad lured alien patrols into traps and neutralized defensive systems. Once inside, they accessed alien communication networks, learning about reinforcements, fleet movements, and strategies. The information was transmitted to Major Torres, allowing her to plan the next phase of coordinated attacks. Meanwhile, in the deserts of Africa, Sergeant Adami's squad intercepted a convoy carrying energy cores. Using knowledge of alien technology and guerrilla tactics, the humans disabled the vehicles and captured the cores. Engineers immediately began studying the cores, finding ways to adapt them for human use. The captured energy would not only power human operations, but also provide leverage for future battles. Across Europe, human units launched simultaneous attacks on alien supply depots, communication hubs, and patrols. The strategy was simple yet effective. Strike hard, strike fast, and then vanish before the enemy could respond. Civilians assisted by guiding soldiers through collapsed infrastructure and providing intelligence on alien movements. Every operation reinforced a simple truth. Humans were not just surviving, they were dominating their environment and exploiting every advantage. Major Torres gathered her commanders to review the progress of the operations. "We are turning the tide," she said. "Every strike, every ambush, every operation weakens the enemy and strengthens us. They assumed we were weak, that we would surrender. But we are human, we adapt, we fight, we endure, and now we dictate the battlefield." "They fight with courage," one officer said. "They adapt with intelligence, they survive when logic says they should not." The humans were no longer reacting. They were leading, controlling the pace and direction of the battle. The coalition's assumptions had been shattered, replaced by the reality of human resilience and adaptability. In the jungles of South America, Sergeant Alvarez's squad intercepted another alien convoy. Using the dense foliage, they created a series of ambushes, each more complex than the last. Explosives were detonated remotely, vehicles were disabled, and alien forces were disoriented. By the end of the operation, the humans had captured valuable supplies and forced the enemy to retreat. Every engagement strengthened the humans' understanding of alien tactics, making future operations more effective. In Europe, Lieutenant Patel's squad continued to disrupt alien communications and supply lines. Each captured unit provided intelligence that allowed humans to anticipate enemy movements. Civilians acted as guides and scouts, ensuring that no path was left unmonitored. Soldiers used the terrain, ruined infrastructure, and improvised weapons to maintain the upper hand. The coalition could no longer predict human actions, they could only react. Major Torres reflected on the significance of these operations. "It is not just our weapons or technology that give us strength," she said. "It is our ability to adapt, to improvise, and to endure. The aliens cannot predict us, they cannot calculate us, and they cannot control us. That is why we fight. That is why we survive. That is why we will win." On the ground, infantry squads used traps, misdirection, and guerrilla tactics to strike at superior forces. Every success, small or large, contributed to a growing reputation that would soon echo across the stars. Humans were not to be underestimated. The coalition had laughed at Earth once. Now they were beginning to understand the truth. Humans were not weak, predictable, or disposable. They were a species that could adapt, survive, and innovate under pressure. Every engagement, every ambush, and every strike reinforced a growing lesson. Humans were a force the galaxy could not ignore. As night fell across the war-torn planet, Major Torres walked among her soldiers, observing their readiness and determination. "We are human," she said quietly, "and that is our greatest strength. They can calculate, predict, and overwhelm. But we can adapt, improvise, and endure. That is why we fight. That is why we survive. That is why we will win." Humans had learned that their greatest weapon was not technology alone, but the combination of courage, adaptability, and unity. They were unpredictable, resilient, and determined. The coalition had underestimated Earth. Now they were beginning to fear it. Humans were no longer reacting. They were leading, controlling the battlefield, and showing that determination, creativity, and unity could overcome even the most overwhelming odds. Major Torres looked toward the horizon, thinking of the battles yet to come. The humans had only begun to demonstrate their potential. Each operation, each ambush, and each act of courage was a step toward a growing reputation across the galaxy. Humans were not just survivors. They were warriors, innovators, and a species that could not be underestimated. The alien fleets had begun to understand something crucial. The humans were dangerous not because of weapons, but because of their willpower. They could not be predicted, they could not be contained, and they would not give up. Every operation reinforced the growing fear across the coalition. Humans were exceptional, and Earth would not fall easily. Earth was no longer just defending itself. Its soldiers, civilians, and engineers had transformed the planet into a battlefield unlike any the galaxy had seen. Cities were scarred, forests burned, deserts pocked with craters, and oceans churned with debris. Yet amid the ruins, humans moved with purpose, resilience, and unity. They were no longer reactive. They were leading, and the coalition could feel it. Major Alina Torres stood atop a ruined skyscraper in New York, surveying the activity below. Soldiers moved swiftly through streets, reinforced barricades, and improvised weapon systems. Civilians assisted in every way possible, from tending the wounded to relaying intelligence about alien movements. Torres felt a quiet pride. Humanity had endured, adapted, and now it was time to make the coalition understand one undeniable truth. Humans would not be conquered. "The aliens are regrouping," she said, speaking to her officers. "They think they can strike again, that they can overwhelm us, but they do not understand one thing: we are human. We adapt, we improvise, we fight, and today we take the battle to them." They had captured alien intelligence that detailed the movements of reinforcements, supply chains, and landing pods. Using this information, the squad set traps along every approach route, turning the city itself into a gauntlet. Explosives were planted, ambush points prepared, and observation posts manned. When alien units approached, expecting an easy advance, they were met with deadly precision from hidden human positions. In the African deserts, Sergeant Kofi Ademi prepared his platoon for an operation that would disrupt alien energy supplies. Convoys moved slowly across the dunes, unaware that every inch of their route had been carefully monitored. Ademi's team had prepared sand traps, improvised explosives, and concealed firing positions. When the convoy entered the kill zone, the humans struck simultaneously from multiple directions. Alien transports were disabled, crews disoriented, and supplies captured. The humans had turned the desert itself into a weapon, demonstrating once again that adaptability was their greatest strength. In South America, Sergeant Maria Alvarez led a squad through the Amazon jungle. Alien patrols were attempting to flank human positions, but the dense foliage made the environment treacherous for the intruders. Alvarez's team set traps, misdirected patrols, and coordinated with other squads to isolate alien units. Explosives hidden in the terrain disabled vehicles, while soldiers fired from concealed positions. By the end of the day, the jungle was under human control, and the captured supplies and equipment gave the humans even more advantage. Across Europe and Asia, similar operations unfolded. Human soldiers and civilians worked in harmony, exploiting knowledge of terrain, captured alien technology, and improvisation. Every trap, every ambush, every counterattack contributed to a growing pattern. Humans were unpredictable, resourceful, and relentless. Alien forces, once confident and arrogant, now hesitated before advancing. Every step was measured against the possibility of human ingenuity. Major Torres coordinated a joint operation involving multiple continents. Using captured alien communication devices, she coordinated strikes on supply depots, landing pods, and communication hubs. Civilians acted as guides, medics, and intelligence agents, providing real-time information to soldiers on the front lines. Engineers had repurposed alien weapons, integrating them into human vehicles and fortifications. Every unit, every individual played a role in the larger strategy. The first major engagement of the counteroffensive occurred over New York. Alien cruisers descended, expecting minimal resistance, only to be met by coordinated fire from repurposed human fighters and ground-based weapons. Missile barrages were intercepted, energy shields overloaded, and landing pods destroyed before they could reach the surface. Human squads on the ground used the ruined streets to their advantage, creating ambushes, directing enemy movement, and disabling vehicles with precision. By the end of the battle, several cruisers had been damaged, and the aliens suffered their heaviest losses yet on Earth. Admiral Vork aboard the Eternal Dominion stared at the reports in disbelief. They are everywhere at once," he muttered. Every ambush, every strike, every operation, they survive, they adapt, they fight. They are not weak, they are formidable. This planet, humans, they are exceptional. The word hung in the air, a concession that the coalition could no longer ignore. On Earth, humans were pushing forward. Soldiers and civilians advanced together, clearing remaining alien forces from urban centers, forests, deserts, and mountains. Every engagement reinforced a growing truth. Humans were dangerous not because of technology, but because of courage, ingenuity, and unity. They were unpredictable, resilient, and unstoppable. Lieutenant Patel led his squad to a captured alien landing zone. Using explosives and improvised tactics, they disabled remaining vehicles and forced retreating alien forces into traps set by other human units. The coordination between squads was seamless, a testament to the humans' ability to communicate, adapt, and improvise under pressure. Every success, every small victory, strengthened morale and reinforced the humans' growing reputation. In the African deserts, Adami's platoon intercepted another convoy, this time carrying energy cores critical for alien operations. Using terrain, traps, and coordinated attacks, the humans disabled vehicles and captured the cores. Engineers immediately began studying the energy, integrating it into human defenses and vehicles. Every captured resource strengthened human capabilities and further demoralized alien forces. In South America, Alvarez's team cleared the jungle of alien patrols. Using guerrilla tactics, ambushes, and knowledge of terrain, the humans captured equipment and forced the enemy to retreat. Civilians provided intelligence, guiding soldiers through hidden paths and ensuring no unit was left isolated. The jungle became a human stronghold, demonstrating once again that determination, ingenuity, and coordination were more valuable than superior technology. Major Torres reviewed the global operations from her command center. Reports from every continent indicated that alien forces were in retreat. Supply lines were disrupted, reinforcements delayed, and communication hubs disabled. Humans had turned defense into offense, taking control of the battlefield. "We have shown them what it means to face humans," she said to her officers. "We fight not just with weapons, but with ingenuity, courage, and unity. They thought we would surrender. We showed them we never will." Fleet commanders hesitated to engage further, fearing ambushes, sabotage, and loss. Reports of human ingenuity, improvisation, and coordinated strikes spread across the galaxy. Species that had once been allies of the coalition began to question their allegiance, impressed and wary of human capability. On Earth, soldiers celebrated quietly. Victories were measured not in conquest, but in survival, resourcefulness, and the successful defense of their planet. Civilians returned to assisting with rebuilding efforts, tending to the wounded, and supporting remaining military operations. Engineers continued to improve defenses, integrate captured technology, and prepare for potential future conflicts. Humans had not only survived, they had triumphed against impossible odds. Lieutenant Patel's squad moved through the ruins of Paris, reflecting on their journey. "We have shown them what humans are capable of," he said quietly. "They laughed at us once, but now they fear us. They know we cannot be predicted, and they know we will not surrender." Every trap, every ambush, every operation reminds them, humans fight to survive, and we never give up. And that is enough. Across the galaxy, stories spread of Earth's resistance, of soldiers who turned ruins into traps, civilians who guided soldiers through chaos, and engineers who adapted alien technology. Humans had earned respect and fear in equal measure. As night fell across Earth, Major Torres walked among her soldiers, observing their determination and resilience. Fires from previous battles still burned, but the planet was alive with activity. Civilians rebuilt, soldiers patrolled, and engineers repaired and improved defenses. Humanity had survived the impossible, adapted to overwhelming odds, and demonstrated a strength that no enemy could ignore. Lieutenant Patel and his squad moved through the streets of New York, surveying the damage and coordinating repairs. "We have survived," he said quietly. "We have fought back, and now the galaxy knows never underestimate humans." "We have shown them what humans are," he said. "They cannot predict us, they cannot control us, and they cannot defeat us easily. Humans have proven their place in the galaxy, not as prey, but as a species that cannot be underestimated. Today, we write a new chapter in our history." Their ingenuity, courage, and unity had turned the tide of battle, forcing even the most powerful alien fleets to retreat. Humanity's reputation was forever changed, not by firepower alone, but by the indomitable will of its people. As the first stars of night appeared above the war-torn planet, Major Tors gazed at the horizon. The battles had been won, but the lesson was clear. Humans were unpredictable, resilient, and united. The galaxy would never look at Earth the same way again. Humans had survived, adapted, and emerged stronger, proving that no challenge, no matter how overwhelming, could break the spirit of humanity. Earth had been defended, its people victorious. The coalition had been forced to retreat, humbled and cautious. Across the galaxy, whispers spread of a planet that could not be conquered, a species that could not be predicted, and a force that refused to surrender. Humanity had earned respect, fear, and recognition, not as a planet to subjugate, but as a species to admire and consider carefully. Major Tors walked among her soldiers one last time, observing the unity, determination, and courage that had made victory possible. "We are human," she said quietly, more to herself than anyone else. "And that is enough. We endure, we survive, we adapt, and we will always fight." They had survived destruction, adapted to unknown threats, and demonstrated ingenuity that no alien species could predict. Earth was safe, for now, but more importantly, humanity's place in the galaxy had been established. They were no longer merely survivors. They were warriors, innovators, and a species that could not be underestimated. The story of Earth's human soldiers would echo through the galaxy for generations. Their courage, ingenuity, and determination had turned the tide against overwhelming odds. The coalition would never forget the lesson learned on this small blue planet. Humans were not weak, they were not predictable, and they would never surrender.